Number 8, we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air.
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders at the great millstone who taught me this truth, and much respect to the Akim Laban and his work. Peace and salutation to the hopefully elect who is scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. To you I say Shalom. Yeah, so in this lesson right here, I want to go into this article that highlights how this mark of the beast system is going to be laid out, in which, you're going to have to make a decision to either take it or not. Because everything that we see happening is literally just a build-up. All right, it's a gradual process of these devils bringing forth this MOTB system. So as you see here from yahoo.com, ICE moves to shackle some 180,000 immigrants with GPS anchor monitors, right? So if you're in the know, then you're in the know. You know that, these devils have an end goal of, putting a chip in the masses. And these are just baby steps leading up into that. So before we can get into it, let's go ahead and get Genesis, the 3rd chapter, as I was quoting. So it says here, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord Yahweh power had made. And so this serpent was not, of course, a snake in the garden. It was an attribute of a man who was very deceitful, all right, in which he was more subtle than any beast or any other nation of the field. The field represents the world, which the Lord Yahweh power had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, had the Most High said, you should not eat of every tree of the garden. All right, so the point here is that the serpent, let's go ahead and get that definition, was more subtle. Strong's H5175. All right, let's go on to the root word, in which here it says to practice divination, divine, observe signs, learn by experience, diligently observe, practice fortune telling, take as an omen, to practice divination, to observe the signs of omens. This is pretty much where wickedness sprung from, the serpent in the garden. These are things in which the Heavenly Father warned us in his law not to, practice in, which is divination and basically witchcraft. This is what the serpent in the garden did. All right, and was the same spirit that was in the serpent is in Esau, Edom today, the so-called white man. So he was more subtle than any of the nations in the field. And when you go into where subtle, Strong's H6175, it says subtle, shrewd, crafty, sly, sensible, crafty, right? And this is the word arum in the Hebrew. So he was subtle, he was shrewd and crafty. And when you go on to the word crafty, it simply says clever at achieving one's aims by indirect or deceitful methods. See? By indirect or deceitful methods. Esau is not going to come out and tell you that his end goal is to chip the masses. But he's going to have things leading up until that point. All right. There's a foot trail which shows that he's headed towards implementing the mark of the beast, the chip. As such, okay, he's trying to put anchor monitors on 180,000 immigrants. And you know what Trump said a while back about what is it? The biometric visa tracking system that will be on air. It will be on land. Because that's their goal. So, like the scripture also say, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. 2 Corinthians 2 in verse 11, lest Satan should get an advantage of us. That us represents the elect, those who are in the know. And for we are not ignorant, which means to not know of his devices. See that? So we're not ignorant of what Esau's motives are. It's plain and simple through the testimony of Yahweh Shai. And this is what we're waiting on. We're waiting on Esau to bring forth the chip, but we know that there's going to be a gradual process leading all the way up into that. All right. So let's go into the word devices. So Strong G 3540 says a mental perception, thought, and evil purpose. You see that? An evil purpose. So just like the serpent in the garden, Satan today, which represents Esau, Edom, the adversary, has an evil purpose to achieve his means of world domination. All right, by deceiving the masses into taking this chip. So I wonder if I got the definition of matter of fact, let me see. I think I had a definition pulled up right here. Yeah, so Gradual means taking place, changing, moving, etc. by small degrees or little by little, all right? By subtlety, little by little. So it's creeping up on these people out here, and only the elect really understand fully what this thing is leading up into. So let's go into this article, because this is pretty much a precursor to the chip. So again, ICE moves to shackle some 180,000 immigrants with GPS ankle monitors. So I'm gonna skip around a little bit and kind of hit a couple of points, and show you clearly that there's gonna be a time in which it's gonna be mandated, and you're gonna have to decide, make a decision. So U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has directed personnel to sharply increase the number of immigrants they shackle with GPS-enabled ankle monitors, as the Trump administration widens surveillance of people it is targeting for deportation. So according to an internal ICE document reviewed by the Washington Post, in a June 9th memo, ICE ordered staff to place ankle monitors on all people enrolled in the agency's Alternatives to Detention program whenever possible. So about 183,000 adult migrants are enrolled in ATD and had previously consented to some form of tracking or mandatory check-ins while they waited for their immigration cases to be resolved. Let's read it again. So it says about 183,000 adult migrants are enrolled in ATD and had previously consented. What does consent mean? Now we know we find this word in the scriptures. Consent means to give permission for something to happen, right? So they had to agree. So it says previously consented to some form of tracking or mandatory check-ins while they waited for their immigration case to be resolved. Currently, just 24,000 of these individuals wear ankle monitors. So if your eyes are open, you can read between the lines and see exactly where it is going, all right? So it says one exception would be, let's skip on down for the sake of time. So the new ankle monitor guidance, which has not been previously reported, marks a significant expansion of a 20-year-old surveillance practice steeped in controversy. So while tracking devices are cheaper and arguably more humane than detention, immigrants and their advocates have long criticized the government's use of the bulky black ankle bands, which they say are physically uncomfortable, impose a social stigma, and invade the privacy of people wearing them, many of whom have no criminal record or history of missed court appointments. So, since the ankle monitor is too bulky and it invades privacy, because you might not be a so-called criminal, but you walk around with this tracking device on you, a lot of immigrants are not going to want that. So what's going to be more convenient? Something under your skin? Something that people can't see, right? That seems more you know, convenient. So let's continue reading on. Let's see, it says this would be a tool used to extend the reach of the government from just the folks it can manage to put in physical detention to an additional hundreds of thousands more that it can surveil, said Laura Rivera, a senior staff attorney at Just Futures, a nonprofit group that has done research on ICE tracking technologies. So, quote unquote, it's designed to turn their own communities and homes into digital cages, right? Because we head into a digital prison as a brain for more, surveillance with these devices. All right. That's what the end goal is, a digital prison worldwide. So it says in an interview, let's see if I can skip down here. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll skip down to the point in which I was really talking about earlier. Right, so here we go. So right here it says, the new policy has taken many by surprise. One day last week, about 50 migrants huddled in a room at an ICE field office in Chantilly, Virginia, waited to be outfitted with tracking devices. Everybody in here, quote unquote, everybody in here needs to either wear hardware or be detained, one ICE official said, according to Megan Brody. See that? So it says again, everybody in here needs to either wear hardware or be detained. See, you're going to be given an option. You're going to be given an option to take this man's tracking device or remain in prison. You see? So they're going to give you an ultimatum. You can get your life back, but you got to be tracked and traced. Now, ultimately, when it comes down to it, there's going to be a chip that's going to be offered. There's going to be a chip that's going to be offered in which you want to make a decision. Damn, do I want to go back into the world and save my life and, go back to how things were kind of normal? Or am I going to deny this man's advice and just remain in prison? So, what is that scripture? 2nd Ed 16 and so 2nd Ed 16 and verse 68. So this is the point in which you're coming into, in which the prophets of old, they saw this, Ezra saw it, John the Revelator saw it, right? So it said, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you. Hey, and they should take away certain of you, right? Round you up, detain you, and feed you, being idle by yourself, isolated, right? With things offered unto idols. So this chip, as we know, is an idol. And that's what's going to be offered to the people at some point. It's not going to be a bulk device on your ankle, which, as just stated, it's kind of invading privacy, but it's going to be something under your skin, which people are not going to be able to recognize or at the back, but you're going to have it. It's going to be more convenient, more safe, secure, right? So they might give you this thing and say that, hey, you can go back into society. Now that you're, you got this device to where we can track and trace you. You see? So again, being idle, they should feed you being idle with things offered unto idols, the chip. And they that consent, what does consent mean? To give permission to. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. So those who agree to take this man's advice are still going to be had in derision. They're still going to oppress you, all right, and do whatever they want to do with you, man, because this is a false sense of peace that they're offering. All right, we're talking about the devil here, man. So that's literally talking about, the hour of temptation that's quickly approaching. So Revelation 13 and verse 16, it says, and he is this beast, which is America, all right, from verse 11. Matter of fact, verse 11, it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, America, and then he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, right? So this beast, America, which came up out of the earth, had two horns like a lamb. That's your Democrat and Republican, which is a reflection of the ancient plebeians and the patricians from the Roman Empire. All right, America is a spitting image of that fourth beast. So these two horns or two powers spake as a lamb, as if, they had peace offerings, as if, they wanted to bring forth safety for the people. But again, it says, and he spake as a dragon. They came with draconian laws and legislations. You're going to be, told that you have to take this chip. It's going to be made mandatory, right? If you don't take it, your livelihood is going to be threatened. See? And so as we skip down to the point in verse 16, it says here, matter of fact, we'll go to verse 15 after we read 16. So it says, and he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, right? This is talking about people, insignificant, and those who have some kind of form of status, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, all right? And that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. So we know that the chip is the mark of the beast. So it says in causa, strong G 4160. All right. It says to, let's see. Yeah, to make ready, to prepare. It said to make one do something. See? Cause one to make one do something. It's going to be mandated. All right? To carry out, execute. See? So this thing is going to be mandated. So going up to verse 15, it says, and he had power to give life into the image of the beast. All right? The philosophies of Rome, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. See, because you're going to be given an ultimatum. You either get down with the system or you be ousted from society. So going to this word killed. All right, it literally means killed. To kill in a way or whatever. That's going to be the end result. All right, once the masses have consented in taking this man's chip, they're going to be given, the authority to put people to death. So root word etymology right here, it says of separation, of local separation. All right. Definition B, of separation of a part from the whole. So you're going to be ousted from society by refusing to take this chip. See? You're not going to be able to go back into society once you're put into these camps. Right? And that's a great time of testing. That's a part of it. Revelation 2:10. It said, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil, Esau, shall cast some of you into prison. You're going to be detained, right? That you may be tried. And you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. It's not talking about 10 days exact. It's just a period of time, right? So it says during that tribulation, while you're being tested, we're being tested, and for whoever gets thrown into those camps, you got to be faithful. You got to deny this man's chip. All right, it speaks about the elect not bowing the knee to the image of Baal, man. You see? So that's a part of the great hour of testing right there. They're going to say that, hey, you can take this chip and we might send you back into society. But we read how, for those who consent, they're going to be had in derision anyway. So you might as well just sit there and take a death if it comes down to that. You never know. The Most High, may see that you're faithful and he may work out a miracle to have you delivered. You might be faced with being put up under a guillotine, okay? And the guillotine might malfunction. Or you might just disappear. An angel might come and snatch you up in the nick of time and have you delivered. But it was all because you remained faithful unto death. You see? But there is going to be some who are going to have to take a quick beheading, just to prove their faith. And that's far better than being tortured, right, by these devils who want to just strip you from limb to limb. They want to, do horrible things into your family and watch you watch and be like, see, all you gotta do is take this chip and you won't have to see your family suffer anymore. You know, there's gonna be some hard shit going on in which, you know, the Lord knows our pressure points and what we can take and what we can't take. And for those who the Lord doesn't want, it's gonna make it extremely hard to deny that chip in that day, man. You know, but for the elect, there will be mercy shown, even in death, if it comes down to that. All right, so that's why the Lord is saying, you know, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. The devil shall cast some of you into prison, the concentration camps, detention centers, that you may be tried. And I often go into this word tried right here. Strong G3985. And when you go into the root word, it says through the idea of piercing. See? Through the idea of piercing. So their evil thought or idea, pursuant to 2 Corinthians 2:11, their device, right, is their plot or their plan to have you pierced with what? A chip, man. So, yeah, I just want to go through that real quick. Let's just show you where this thing is headed. Gradualism, you know, step-by-step process to the chip being mandated. As I said here, you know, these people who had to be, you know, who had to subscribe to this program or whatever. Yep, right here. Had to deal with mandatory check-ins, you know, for their case to be resolved. So, yeah, these are precursors to the great hour of temptation. So with that, Lord willing, you're edified. Till next time I say, Shalom.